All right, welcome on into C-Ball Get Ball. Matt Miller joins us just like he does once a week, fresh off the Super Bowl. Mike McDonald, to me, man, was like the big story just to watch. Obviously, he's from right down the road at Georgia, but just to watch his growth and his background and know his story, like that dude literally. So my trainer, Matt, that I had with the Georgia and went with me with the Cincinnati with the Bengals. My trainer, he was looking into jobs for Mike because Mike was looking to go into the financial world. And like, he was like, I think I need to, so he's trying to get him a job. And then obviously the Ravens called, and then he goes to Ravens assistant to DC to, to Michigan, to all these different ways. But like, what a story. And I mean, what'd you think? Just Super Bowl thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I loved this story. It's not just for Mike, but Sam Darnold. And we talked about this last week. Darnold was my number one quarterback in that 2018 class. And he was cast off so quickly. And, we rightfully so, Lamar Jackson's won some MVPs. Josh Allen's won an MVP. Baker's been really, really good player. Josh Rosen didn't work out. But it's like you look at those five quarterbacks and Sam was fourth. He was the guy that was like, oh, and then, I got drafted by the Jets and he's bounced around a little bit. The turnaround the last 2 years for Sam Darnold has been remarkable. So that was one of those where it was like rooting for either team, because you know how it is. Like you end up with friends on, every team in the NFL. You got a buddy that's been there or a player that you really liked is there. You root to be right, absolutely. And I picked Seattle to win, so I was there. And the full circle moment of, I think the moment is past to like plant your flag on Darnold as QB1 in that class and be like, oh, I was right. No, I mean, Josh Allen's pretty darn good. Lamar Jackson's pretty darn good. Baker's had a great career. But for him to be the first quarterback to win a Super Bowl and to play as well as he has the last 2 years, I think it's one of those learning moments when it comes to our jobs, when it comes to being a fan of this sport of, man, we got to stop giving up on people too early. Development matters, situation matters, experience matters. And instead, we want to toss guys out, the first sign of a little bit of a bump in the road. So hopefully that begins to change now.
Well, and I'm sure Drake May will get tossed aside a little bit because he played bad. But it wasn't like Sam Darnold set the world on fire. But I think just Sam Darnold felt like a kid that had faced a lot of adversity. And he's not a kid anymore, but somebody that that dude's been hit in the mouth and pinged around. And it was like, all right, like I've been there, done that. And I like the way he responded. And he just continued to make plays. And he wasn't the catalyst by any stretch, but his offensive line was very ungood. It ain't like they were protecting him. Now we can debate whether it was, I know, does your left tackle prediction hold true too? Because you had Will as a guard, right?
Yep, I did. Yeah. And I mean, unfortunately, Will is the guy that the spotlight was put on him as a rookie left tackle going against a really good defense. And we talked about how great that defensive line was before the game last week. And so I think, I like that Vrabel came out. I was like, no, we're going to keep him at left tackle. I think there's some really easy things to clean up. I've never played left tackle in the NFL or even in Pee Wee football, but I think from studying the position for the past 16 years, there's some things with timing that could fix a lot of his problems. It's funny though, DP, how much you and I have talked about things like arm length, how much it matters, how counter moves. We've talked about that for the last month. And it plays out on Super Bowl Sunday night. I watched the game with all my friends and was like, you got to go listen to the podcast I did with David Pollack about this, about arm length and when it matters versus when it doesn't matter. And that longer arms allow you more of a room for error. You can be a little bit later with your hands when you have longer arms. So I think Will Campbell's a hardworking dude who got, punched in the teeth a little bit in front of the biggest football audience you can have. And I bet it drives him to be even better. But, speaking of, so like with Sam Darnold, I don't know if I've ever told you this before. When I evaluate players and you start to get into like the bio, the background, who are they, where are they from? I have a column about adversity. And it's something that I prefer players, especially quarterbacks that have gone through something. Like I would love for you to have been benched, in college, or maybe you were a 2-star recruit. Like Cam Ward last year was a great example of that, of like a no-star recruit who bounces around, ends up being the number one overall pick. I think that type of adversity is something that you have to experience to be great in the NFL. You have to learn, number one, how much do you love this game? Are you willing to keep playing and fighting when things aren't easy? Because for some of these dudes, it's easy. They're fighting and then stuff gets hard. So I definitely look for those players where, you kind of want that Joe Burrow, the guy that got bounced and then dad's alma mater didn't want you, and you go to LSU and you get rocked in that the bowl game your junior year, and then senior year you're unstoppable. Like those are the types of players I look for.
So I guess you're going to love some Mendoza then, because
yep, I do. I do. Yeah.
I mean, that's right. And his pro day is coming up. And what do you think about him? He's going to work out, right? Hey, did you see the video of Mendoza at the wedding this past week?
No.
Mendoza at the wedding. I'll be honest. I was like, what are we going to see? With Mendoza, because he's done such a good job of staying clean cut and like above the fray and delayed gratification and all that stuff. But he had a drink in his hand. And I was like, I didn't even know if the dude would drink, to be honest, because he's so nerdy. But like, I bet that's something y'all all look at, right? Like you're trying to get your hands on everything you can, right?
Right, absolutely. Remember a couple of years ago when it became a thing for all these quarterbacks to shotgun beers, and then Tom Brady did it, and it was like the fastest I've ever seen someone put down a glass of beer. It changed my perception of Tom Brady completely, because it was the same. It's like, there's no way this avocado eating dude who probably doesn't put any carbs in his body can shotgun a beer, and it disappeared. So you kind of want that, right? You want a guy who can hang with the teammates and be respected, but also knows his limits a little bit. But it absolutely all goes into trying to put together that picture of who the prospect is. But I love Mendoza. I know he said he's not going to throw at the combine. I don't care. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter for him. He just put together a 16-game season.
Is there anything he can improve?
I don't think so. I mean, you're going to be the number 1 overall pick. All you have to do is stay clean for the next 3 months. And he stayed clean for, 23 years as far as I can find out. So I don't think there's anything to worry about. Just date the Raiders for the next couple months. That's the goal. Date the Raiders, make Tom Brady and Mark Davis and Clint Kubiak fall in love with you. I'd probably go ahead and get Brock Bowers' phone number and see if he wants to throw a little bit this offseason, because it's the number 1 pick is his to lose. And the only scenario I could see is someone giving the Raiders an unbelievable offer to move off that spot. And I don't know if you saw the news this week. Teams are petitioning to be able to trade 5 years worth of draft picks now, not just 3, 5. Wow. We're talking about 2031 draft picks could now be on the market. So
you like that?
I think that is, I love it. I mean, why not, right? The NBA lets you trade for the next 10 years.
The NBA maximizes their window with superstars by doing that. That's how LeBron's done all of his stuff. Like every team he goes to, they mortgage the future, right? Like, so that allows you now to say, like, heck, if I got a dude that I think my window is kind of short, like I imagine, like, hey, I'm gonna build this thing right now. Screw the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so if you're the Chiefs and you've got the greatest quarterback in the league, an aging head coach, Hall of Fame tight end, probably come back for one more year, why would you not say, all right, let's, who cares about 2029 right now? We need players today. Do you front load it? Do you say, all right, let's go all in? We don't have a lot of veteran quarterbacks in the NFL right now outside of Matthew Stafford. It's very much a young quarterback league right now. But, the Rams have 2 first-round picks this year in a not great draft class. It makes you wonder, how much would teams start to look down the road and be like, we'll figure that out then. Let's go win right now, versus the teams that will do the opposite and say, we're going to take the approach of, we want a lot of draft picks spread out. We'll just take picks after picks after picks. And I would probably be more of that mindset of, if I have an older player and we start to see the downturn, I think I'd Bill Belichick it and be like, I got to get rid of this player before I can't get anything for him. You want to be a year early rather than a year late.
Belichick would have 25 years worth of picks in the future the way he wanted to build.
Yeah. And they still draft Cole Strange in the first round. So,
yeah, we talked about that. Not good. Hey, Kubiak, I thought Kubiak, first of all, the way he managed the Super Bowl. If you didn't see Clint Kubiak and you didn't know who he is, he's the offensive coordinator for the Seahawks. Like, I thought the way he called plays was fabulous. I love play callers that stack plays on top of plays and set up plays for down the road. Like, I just think that's an art, that there's an art form to that, and you have to be there. It takes a special thinker to be able to do that. But then I saw him interviewed as the Raiders head coach too, and obviously he's making the pick with Mendoza, and immediately I'm like, he's going to fall in love with Mendoza, and him and Mendoza are going to work really well together.
Oh, absolutely. And he's Mendoza's processing speed is so good. His accuracy is great. Arm talent is, I think, underrated. I really don't think we're talking enough about his arm talent because he throws such a catchable ball that you don't see him just rip it a lot of the times because he understands, how to throw the ball that's catchable so that his guys can make a play on it. But I mean, the accuracy, the understanding of space, the understanding of angles is so good that I would think Kubiak would have a field day with him. Now, the Raiders got to find a number one receiver. That's the key. And I would think this is a receiver-rich draft.
That's him.
Yeah, Bowers. You got Bowers. You got Jonte. If Colton Miller's back healthy, you got a left tackle. There's pieces there. There really is. It's just getting those guys in the right scheme to where they can execute and make plays.
I love how you just tried to sell me that there's pieces there. And that team has been abysmal for a long time. Like it's
silver lining.
It's gonna for the red and for the silver and black. It's interesting, man. That culture has just been so bad, and it's just been. And you got Brady, obviously, who knows what it takes, and obviously has done it at a high level and was built different, and lived different, and did all that stuff. But just last year was bad. Like, that was bad to watch. I mean, because Geno Smith was a pretty good player for Seattle. He turned into an absolute bad player, like really bad player. And listen, they made a coaching change, but they've made a lot of coaching changes, and not a lot has changed. When's the last time the Raiders were decent? I mean, it's been
they had like a Derek Carr year where they beat the Chiefs one time, right? But it's been a long time since they were a threat. And in that division, it's not going to be easy. Like, it's no matter even if you make the right coaching change, it's not going to be easy. When you have Mahomes, you have Bo Nix looks really good in Denver.
Soaring.
Jim Harbaugh and Herbert together. It's going to be a tough road, no matter who you have in there.
Tough division for sure. All right, combine thoughts, man. What's the big storylines coming into combines for these guys coming up?
Yeah, 319 players. That list got announced today on Wednesday, and I'm going through the list right now. I haven't made it to the snubs yet. I'm at the point where I'm making sure the 319 that got invited are on my list, right? It's like, is there anyone that somehow slipped through the cracks, basically? Because, the way I do it is I get a list of players in the summer and start whittling it down. So it's easier to take away players. I'll start with like 1,200. You want to get to about 500. And so you check, all right, Senior Bowl, Shrine Game, Hula Bowl, American Bowl, the early entry list. And then you get the combine list, and you use those to really whittle that list down. I'm like, okay, if a guy didn't play in an all-star game or get invited to the combine, I could probably cut him from the list, right? The deck is stacked against you at that point. So for me, I'm more cutting guys than adding guys at this point. But one that jumped off the page, Ethan Burke, the defensive end from Texas, was the biggest surprise that I've seen so far. Didn't get the invite, but the NFL does such a good job of finding these guys. And the way it works is you basically have to have scouts vouch for you. So it's not folks like me building this combine list. It's scouts who are on the road and they turn in names. And as a player, you have to have so many scouts basically say, I want to see David Pollack at the combine. That's how you get your invite. So they do a really, really good job of getting the players there that the teams want to see. And sometimes there's guys who, have had an injury. Like Jalen Daniels from Kansas, the quarterback, got an invite. Is he a draftable player? Probably not. He's probably going to get asked to work out at a couple different positions, but he's a guy who's had some back injuries in college. He's also had some amazing plays in college. So that's the type of guy that the combine really matters for, a lot more than a Fernando Mendoza, who's going to be the first overall pick. And you got 40 games of tape to watch on him and no injury questions really to speak of. I think the combine's more about the fringe guys than it is the known commodities.
Well, like Noah Thomas, a guy from Georgia. That's a guy that is not on the list. Yeah. He's not going to combines. Like, did that surprise you?
Yeah, that one did. I think he would test really well. And so sometimes you're looking forward to seeing those guys.
He's a really
right?
big guy. I mean,
yeah. So I think, sometimes it is that, like, it's the guy you hope makes it just because of that. And Noah Thomas was right there. Like, he and Nick Harbor were the two receivers where I was like, man, I want to see these guys go together because both are such phenomenal athletes, phenomenal, just big time movers. And so for him not to get that, but the good news for like a Georgia player is that pro day is going to be so heavily attended that it's almost like the combine, right? You're going to have 32 NFL teams are going to be there. So you're going to be okay as far as that goes. But this receiver class is stacked. It really is. I mean, there's not the, Tedrow McMillan type player. There's not the, that guy, Marvin Harrison Jr., that we've been talking about forever. But it's a really deep wide receiver class. And at some point, you just run out of numbers. And it does get to that cut list.
Is there a clear one? Like,
I don't think there is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're not looking, there's not a guy that you're going to go like Tetro last year that like he's going to be a one, like start day one for the Panthers, which, obviously have struggled, but like there's not a clear guy like that, but you're saying there's a ton of guys that are going to be starting and be impact players.
Yeah, and we can still see guys go in the top 10 just because of the nature of this class and where it's not strong. Cardinal Tate from Ohio State could go top 10. 6'3", 200 pounds. He's a great route runner. He's really instinctive. He's just polished coming out of Ohio State. And then you have Mekhi Lemon at USC, who's in that Amon-Ra St. Brown mold. Tough, 5'11", 195, great yak player, wins with leverage and the way that he can separate, fearless in traffic. Those are the top two guys. And then you have Jordan Tyson at Arizona State, who's had some injury issues. But we could see all three of those guys go in the top 15, and it wouldn't be a surprise just because of it's a premium position, number one, but then also where the strengths in this class aren't. We're not going to see a lot of offensive tackles go early. We're only going to see one quarterback, most likely, in the top 15 or 20 picks. So I think you start to then look at, all right, where would these guys be in last year's draft or the year before? Maybe not drafted this highly, but in this year's class, I mean, they're looked at as top 12 players.
Well, and Tate's contested catches, Lemon's contested catches were actually really, really good, even though he was small. Like, he made plays. That dude was good. That dude was a baller. So quarterbacks, we'll find out at over the next couple. Like, what is your guess? In the end, will you have another quarterback taken in the first round?
I don't think so. I don't. Just because, like Ty Simpson, maybe we see a team go that Kenny Pickett, Jackson Dart route where you're at the end of round one. You're like, hey, let's take a chance on a guy. I personally wouldn't do it, but I understand I'm not sitting there as Mike McCarthy, the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, saying, man, I don't have a quarterback right now. So a team could actually, get the pressure to jump into that. This free agent market's going to be wild, though. Malik Willis is sitting out there as a viable starter. Kirk Cousins is going to be out there. We'll see what happens with Daniel Jones. Kyler Murray will potentially be traded. So things will get really interesting. The middle of March when free agency opens is going to inform us a lot about how these teams do see this draft class. If they're going to go all in, like last year, the Jets make the move to get Justin Fields just because they knew they were going to be able to draft a quarterback, basically. So we'll see how Pittsburgh plays. And I think that's the key team to watch for a player like Ty Simpson.
Yeah. Mike McCarthy did not feel like a Pittsburgh guy.
No.
Like that felt that hire made me feel like they did not have a clue that Tomlin was retiring. Yeah,
or that John Harbaugh was going to be available. Like that's the move. That's who you go get.
Plug and play of a same type of a culture guy and a fit.
Or McDermott. McDermott would be great in Pittsburgh. Yeah,
that was
you got to have that intel, right? You got to be plugged in when you make these moves.
Matt's got to be talking to more people. What else at the combines will be the big storylines that we'll be watching? So we got wide receivers at the top. What else?
Yeah, the combine, I always say the two most important things that happen at the combine are the things that you don't see on TV. And they're the things that we really can't talk about. And that's the medicals and then the interviews, because you're trying to figure out with these guys, and you've been through it, they're going to look at every scar on your body and say, what happened there? My good buddy Matt Bowen tells the story all the time. He had a bike wreck when he was like 8 years old. And he got to the combine and they're looking at his knee being like, what, did you have a secret surgery? Like, what is this scar here? And it's like, I wrecked my bike when I was a kid, So they want to know everything that's ever happened medically to you and then to find out about those, who did the surgery? How was the rehab? They're going to go full circle on that. But I maintain the most important thing are those 15-minute speed dating interviews that players get with teams, because, if you're a player that has any question marks on or off the field, you're getting grilled. Like, you're walking into that room at the hotel and you've got the lights are on you. There's 15 people sitting in the room and they're about to hit you with the biggest mistake you've ever made in your life and want to know why it happened and why it won't happen again. And to those of us who, have had normal jobs, that seems incredulous to us that you're going to get pressed like that. But there's so much at stake that anything that could be considered, a character issue, a work ethic issue, a personality issue, that stuff's going to get hammered so hard by these teams. And To be honest, that's why a month from now, you're going to see rankings that look really different than the ones today. And it's not always because how someone ran a 40-yard dash or how many bench reps. It's more about those interviews and the things that we start to hear from teams about the players.
Well, and then they got to take that and figure out what's important to him. By the way, the only one I fell when I was a junior and sliced my head, and I had 32 staples in my head falling down my buddy's houseboat steps. Only one team asked me about it, Bill Belichick. He's like, what happened?
Of course.
Were you drinking? And I was like, no, I don't drink. But like they were the one team that asked me about it specifically. What happened that night? So I mean, you get the wild questions. You get the questions you can't really compare for. But you know what's interesting? You talk about character, and there was a story literally this past week that all Falcons fans, which is close to us right here, they were like, all right. Because last year during the season, everybody was like, wait a minute, we kind of look good. Like we made a trade that made a big impact. This Pierce guy is way better than people thought. What was the knock on Pierce when he was coming out?
No one ever thought he was a bad player.
No.
But, and I talked about this in the pre-draft. Folks can go back and look. I'm not just saying that after the fact. My sources at Tennessee said that they wouldn't even let James Pierce talk to the media. It's like when ESPN, when game day goes to do a Vols game, he was off limits. He was not allowed to speak to the media because he was so volatile. And you talk to coaches there and they say, one of my favorite things to ask a coach is, if you got hired to go run an NFL team today, which players would you not take with you? Are there any guys on your team that are no-goes, that if you got elevated, like who are you building around and who are you not building around? He was the guy teams would say, like, nah, he's not going. And so then you want to know why. Like, what is it? What is about him? And it was just like immaturity issues, and that happens. These guys are 21, 22 years old. There's a lot of growing up to do. I'm very different than I was at 21 or 22. But it's the question of, all right, in an unsupervised environment with millions of dollars at your disposal, what do we have to do? How do we support you, right? And Pierce was always one of those guys where, I mean, everyone I talked to was like, he might be great, and he was as a rookie, but how long will it last? And that's the tragic part, right? If when you have that much talent and you have those flashes, you're rooting for those issues that you heard about to like, oh, maybe they outgrew them. There's been hundreds of players in my 16 years where you hear, oh, they've outgrown. I remember teams telling me, take Tyrann Mathieu off your list. Don't even put his name on your big board because it's going to make you look bad. Tyrann Mathieu is borderline Hall of Fame player. He overcame his issues, right? And he grew up and he made better choices. So that's what you hope for. But, with a James Pierce, when that happened, I'm sure you got the same text I did of people being like, told you so. We kind of thought that that he could be a player that could have something pop up. And you hope that, that it's something he can learn from because he's incredibly, incredibly talented.
Yeah. Jalen Carter was one that was talked about.
Yeah.
The thing that was actually the last draft I did on ESPN. The thing that really bothered me about that one, I really was bothered by the way people talked about his football character. Because when I watched that dude, like I heard lazy and didn't compete. I'm like, I don't see that. Like I didn't see lazy. I saw the guy that was super, super competitive. I saw the guy that had an array of pass rush moves. Now, did he have other stuff off the field that were differences that we can talk about? Yeah, but I was like, dude, so how do you distinguish too the laziness, the off the like what do they say is the most important things that they like? Because you need some guys with some edge too, man. Like
absolutely,
there's a fine line.
Yeah, you want an edge rusher that's a little bit unhinged, but also is going to show up to practice. And then those are the things you're looking for, right? Like I maybe don't want you to be the nicest guy on the team, but I'd like you to be coachable, and love the game. And so, I heard a story at the Senior Bowl about a player, and I won't name the player, but it was like, he's kind of a weird guy. And I was like, well, weird how? Because like weird could be good in some ways. And they're like, well, he doesn't really hang out with the teammates a whole lot, but he's just in the weight room every morning at 4:00 and he's best friends with the student trainer. Like they play Fortnite together and like they hang out. It's like, okay, well, I'm okay with that. Like if this dude just wants to go back to his apartment and play Fortnite, but he's showing up to practice 2 hours early. Yeah, I can live with that. If he's dialed in when it comes to football and kind of a homebody, I think that's kind of the dream, as long as you're productive.
Yeah. I think you definitely want people that most of the folks that it takes the effort and the competitive drive that it takes to get to that level, you've got to have a little something different about you. And you've got to be a little bit psycho / egotistical / I'll never forget, Matt, I went against Jonathan Ogden as a rookie. Oof. And I'll never forget, like, he kicks back and I rush the passer. I'm like, gosh dang it, I missed with my hands. Like, dang it, I missed with my other hand. I missed with this. Like, I never thought Ogden should beat me. Like, that didn't enter my mind. I knew he's good. I know he's 6'9", 6'10" ballerina at 360. Like, I knew he had ridiculous feet and stuff, but like, you got to have a little bit of crazy to you, like, because you're maniacal. You're in an atmosphere of all this testosterone with all this competitiveness, and like, you either sink or swim. Like, there is no in between, man. Like, you gotta be a psycho.
Yeah, and that's what you're looking for, right? It's someone that has that cockiness / confidence that they can go against one of the best offensive tackles of all time as a rookie and say, I'm faster than him. I have better leverage. I saw a flaw that wasn't there. That's what you're looking for, right? And someone that does have the toughness to get into a coordinated car crash 60 times a game.
And be okay with it.
Yeah, not always the most adjusted human beings that we're looking for out there, but and again, that's why the interviews matter so much. And you get 15 minutes, and then you can have longer interviews down the road with private visits, pro days, things like that. But it's where those conversations with people at these universities is so important, because you might only get those 15 minutes. And if you're a team that drafts a player that has a checkered past and it comes out the day of the draft or a week after the draft or a year after the draft, those are oftentimes some of the difference between keeping your job as a scout or general manager and not, if you miss on a player with some of those issues.
I remember Denny Green was the Arizona Cardinals coach, and I never forget, like, he was showing me the new stadium and how we're going to roll the field out and it will get sunshine and then we'll roll it back in the stadium. And he was like, I'm not interested in anybody that's not excited to be an Arizona Cardinal. And he was jacked. Like, he was full on Denny Green and excited. And he's like, would you be excited to be a Cardinal? And I'm like, the Cardinals suck. Like, I mean, in my head, you're like, I didn't say that. I didn't have that on, but I'm like, golly, these guys ain't that good, bro. Like, I mean, so you're kind of like, yeah, like, I'm excited, but I bet they also can read that all over your face too. I mean, they know, they know, they've been in all these meetings for all these years. They know when you're full of crap and when you're not. And then some of that stuff, though, you just got to kind of guess and take people's words for it. Who are the best? Let's do some of the best players from the South. Let's go from the South, from the Southeastern Conference. Like, who's going to be the top guys that you're debating with? Like the top period guys that you talk about that you have on your list.
Yeah, I mean, so oddly enough, this year, it is a Big Ten heavy draft class, which is uncommon. We've seen the SEC dominate so much lately. Once again, I mean, Georgia and Texas dominate.
We've seen the Big Ten dominate recently is what we've seen.
Right.
Back-to-back champs, different champs, and
it shows up
in the mix.
Yeah, it shows up in this draft class. So just guys from the Southeast, like, Georgia is going to have Monroe Freeling in the first round. That's probably it. Right. You look at Alabama, Ty Simpson, maybe Caden Proctor. This is not, it's not the year for these guys. CJ Allen will be like an early round 2 pick from Georgia. Auburn's got Keldrick Falk, but it's not an SEC draft. Tennessee's got the 2 corners, Colton Hood, Jermon McCoy. They'll be first round picks. But this is, Miami will have a lot of guys with Francis Mauigoa, the offensive tackle, Ruben Bain, Akeem Mesidor, the 2 rushers. They'll both be first rounders, but this is an up north draft. It's really, speaks, like you said, the dominance that we've seen from the Big Ten the last 2 years, especially, Indiana, Notre Dame's got several players. Ohio State has a lot. Ohio State could legitimately have 3 players in the top 6 picks. I mean, it's crazy the amount of talent that they're continually turning out. Now, I do think we'll get into like round 2. We'll start to see some Clemson guys, some Georgia guys like Zachariah Branch will be in there. Jeremy Bernard from Alabama will be in there in round 2. But this will be a draft dominated by those folks up north for sure.
And that is crazy. Obviously, but the numbers have been trending that way. Like the Big Ten had, I think, I want to say they were within 7 picks of the SEC like a year ago. Like it was really, really close. Like it wasn't a blowout.
And in volume, the SEC is probably still going to win out. But it's not first round guys because again, like Georgia and Texas are going to put players into the NFL. They over the last 3 years, no schools have more players invited to the combine than Georgia and Texas. That's gonna stick, right? Kirby and Sark are so good at what they do that we're gonna continually to see probably 9 to 10 players from both those schools drafted this year. But Ohio State is doing a dang good job. Indiana, all those guys lost eligibility. So it's not just Mendoza, it's the wide receivers, it's Cooper and Surratt, it's D'Angelo Pons, it's Roman Hemby, it's Carter Smith. Like Indiana they should have the most players drafted this year because they got a bunch of 23 to 25-year-olds who run out of eligibility and they've played great football over the last 2 years. But there's definitely been a shift that I think will shift back. I saw a stat the other day that once again, Georgia and Texas both had top 10 recruiting classes and top 10 transfer portal classes. So they're going to continue to turn out tons of NFL talent. A&M's got a lot of players, Tech's got a lot of players, but this will be a year where I think we'll focus a lot more on the Ohio States, the Indianas, and then we are the kind of traditional powers in the Southeast.
How many first-round picks will Ohio State have?
Oh, my goodness. So, we can run down the list. They'll have Carnell Tate at wide receiver. They'll have Caden McDaniel, the defensive tackle will be in there. You've got the 2 backers, Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles, and then Caleb Downs.
Will Styles be a first-round pick?
I think Styles will be a top 10 pick. He is a stud. And
he'll be over Reese?
I think Reese will go earlier, but they'll both go early. It's tough for a true linebacker to get drafted in the top 10, but this draft class being a little bit weaker, when you're 6'4", 235 and you move like Sonny Styles does, you're going to be a first-round pick. It's just – and I know like you're there in Georgia. C.J. Allen has been a rock star for them. C.J. Allen's limitations are length and speed, and that's where Sonny Styles shines. It's just we're talking about two different prototypes at the position, but Styles' range, the fluidity that he plays with, I have a hard time seeing him get out of the top 10 or 12.
Indiana, how many first-round picks will they have?
So I'm Mendoza. That's the big one. He's probably their only first-round pick. Omar Cooper, maybe the wide receiver, the dude who had like the crazy catch against Penn State. He could be in there. Elijah Surratt will be a second-round pick.
Depends on what he runs.
Yeah, for Cooper, it absolutely does. I think Surratt will be a top 50. I think D'Angelo Pons should be a top 50. I know he's going to be small, but as far as nickel corners go, he is exactly what you want at that position. So he should go pretty early. But they're a team that was built on great football play, not great football players so much. So I think we'll see them load up like rounds 3, 4, 5. That's where that run of Indiana players is going to go.
All right. Well, who else from the Big Ten will have a bunch of guys, their names called early?
Yeah, so Michigan will. Oddly enough, Utah will have 2 offensive tackles go. Spencer Fano, Caleb Wilmo will both go first round. But outside of Ohio State, goodness, that's the Big Ten school that's going to dominate.
That's crazy.
It's so spread out this year.
And Jeremiah Smith is a top pick, a number 1 pick, probably, like a number 1 pick overall. Saying obviously is going to be highly drafted. Like, that's crazy. Chris Henry Jr., who's coming in, by the way, he's going to be the next guy that's just going to fall in line with those guys. He's going to be a freshman next year, but that's not. I'm sure there's other guys on that roster that are younger guys too that you look at and you're just like, they're next freak up.
Oh, without a doubt. That's where you start. Like we were talking about building out a list. You start with Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, Texas, Miami, now Indiana, Texas Tech, LSU, especially now. I think LSU is a team that you have to look at. And that's where you start, right? And then you work down from there and look at, your conference All-Americans and things like that. But Ohio State is they're on a heater. And Penn State's got players, they'll be well represented this year as well. And it's going to be fun to see how, new regimes in these places, turn things around.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's been a crazy world because it's not, I bet your jobs have gotten even harder because the talent is spread out so much more than it used to be now. So,
yeah. The crazy thing is, when you start talking about a player like Zachariah Branch, and I'll go, Branch from USC, and you're like, oh, dang it, nope, he's in Georgia now. And people, people hop on you about like, oh, he's not a USC, and it's like, I know, but in my brain, he has been there, and I still have memories of him playing for USC, and it's keeping track of where these guys are now. We used to talk a lot about that. You'd be like, oh, Baker Mayfield transferred from Texas Tech to Oklahoma. That was a big thing that you talk about. Anymore, it's every player basically has transferred, so you don't really bring it up. It's crazy how much it's changed
a lot. And then I think too, the money, with all the money these guys make, one of the questions is always, what are you going to do when they get the money? Will they stay competitive? Will they stay hungry? Because there's a big difference to me between guys that were chasing and guys that were chasing, right? Like guys that were hungry versus hungry. And you probably see that now too. Some of these guys, they've made so much money. They've been highly recruited. They've made a lot of money. And you kind of see that it's kind of worked itself out already.
Yeah, no, you're right. That used to be my number one question was, what happens when you give this 21 or 22-year-old millions of dollars? Now we know, and so one of my catchphrases is, do you want to play football or be a football player? Now we know, because if you just want to be a football player that gets the money and the girls and the headlines, you can have all that by the time you leave college and be somewhat set if you're smart with your money. But now we know, okay, Fernando Mendoza wants to play football. That guy, I don't think he cares about the money. He just wants to play football. That's what we're looking for ultimately.
The great Matt Miller joining us again, like always. We're going to continue to put those sayings together, Matt. Like
yes.
We already got draft good football players on a sticky note, so now we just keep adding the sayings to them that you've cultivated over 20 plus years now of doing your job.
Feels like it. It feels like it. Yeah.
All right, man. Appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Always, buddy. Thank you.
Be good.